While there is plenty of wildlife to be seen right around modern Nairobi, most visitors prefer to leave the big city and get their safaris started. We decided to venture to the north of Kenya, somewhat off the beaten track, to the village of Maralal. We would be crossing the equator at an altitude of almost 7,000 feet. Running for some 4,000 miles across Africa, the Rift Valley is one of the most distinctive geological features on Earth. It formed 40 million years ago, when mankind's ancestors were just emerging into the African savanna. This region is certainly the cradle of mankind, and evidence from the Olduvai Gorge suggests that some people generally resembling certain rugby players were living here over 1.5 million years ago. Even though the ubiquitous Maasai and Samburu people of Kenya and Tanzania look like ancient inhabitants of the land, evidence has shown that their ancestors only migrated to this region about 1,000 years ago from the Nile Valley in the Sudan. Today, these are East Africa's most instantly recognizable native inhabitants. Most Maasai and Samburu are nomadic, leading their herds of cattle and goats vast distances across the landscape. Cattle are a measure of wealth and social standing, as well as a food source. Most of the Maasai diet comes from a mixture of cow milk and blood tapped directly from the living cow's jugular vein. Asking a Maasai how many cattle they own is considered unlucky. Most will answer more than 10, and according to an ancient tribal tradition, knowing the exact amount of one's herd can bring disaster to it. As semi-nomadic people, the Maasai are known to build basic shelter and pens for their livestock out of available materials, including dung and thorned acacia trees. Some say the Maasai are the best suited people to withstand global climate change, as they've already perfected living off harsh deserts and scrublands. Most of the Maasai I met wore modified old rubber truck tires as shoes. Somehow this gave me the sense that their customs will be here long after ours have gone away. The Maasai believe in a single god called Ngai, who has two personalities. Black Ngai is benevolent, while red Ngai is vengeful. The volcano, called Oldonyo Langai in Tanzania, is the holiest place on earth for the Maasai people. Finally, no trip to Kenya or Tanzania is complete without witnessing a Maasai dance performance. In the Maasai music, there are no instruments, just syncopated human voices. The men jump as high as they can to demonstrate their strength and stamina as tribal warriors. If you're traveling around East Africa, it helps to have some Maasai locals as your guides. They know every inch of the landscape and where some of the most magical locations in East Africa can be found. I had heard about a mystical cave in central Kenya, which few tourists had ever seen. My driver didn't know where it was and had never been there, but the local Maasai knew it well and offered to take us. The road was atrocious and at times completely unmarked, and when I'd ask my Maasai guide, whose name was Jackson, how much further we had to go, he would simply say, "Not far."
Dusty, dusty, dusty.
But minutes dragged into hours as I realized not far to a Maasai could mean hundreds of miles. But Jackson was right. There was a magical cave here, one of the greatest sights I've ever filmed. The amazing Suswa Caves. Of course, just as I was getting my fill of this dazzling, remote, and deeply spiritual place, my illusions were shattered. Jackson's cell phone rang, and he spent the next 10 minutes talking to his mother.